Hi, I'm Micah Ray with D4 Concepts. This video is all about the tool Know Yourself to Lead Yourself. You can use this tool to refresh your memory on how to use the tool for yourself as well as how to use it for others. So, John Maxwell said famously, the toughest person to lead is always yourself. We know that to be true, right? Many times the choices that we have to make for ourselves seem to come more difficult than the choices we make for others. And if you can learn to lead yourself, I think you can be well on your way to leading other people. Steve Cockram, one of the founders of Giant, says you never graduate from the school of self-awareness. Why is that? Because we are always changing, we're evolving, we're adapting, we're learning new things, we're becoming new people. As we change, as we become new people, we have to learn to know something about ourselves and to know ourselves in a different way. We are constantly learning about ourselves and becoming more self-aware. So let's take a look at the tool. This Know Yourself to Lead Yourself tool has at the very center of it an infinity diagram for the reason that I just mentioned. We never graduate from the school of self-awareness. It's a lifelong journey to learn about yourself and to continually be more self-aware. Now, this tool has several labels around the outside edges of it. You can start with tendencies at the very bottom and work your way around to reality. Or I found that you can also start with reality and work your way back to tendencies. So let's start first there. Let's say that you have recognized a new reality that you have created for yourself. Perhaps you're not getting invited to meetings or to participate in projects, or perhaps people aren't sharing information with you, or perhaps people don't talk to you like they used to, or perhaps there's a broken relationship. Whatever it may be, there's this new reality that you have noticed about yourself. Once you notice this reality, you can start to look back and say, what consequences have led to this reality? What are some of the things that people are doing around me? What does it feel like to be on the other side of me? What sorts of ways are people treating me differently? When I start to see those consequences, then I can start to say, is there any action that I have taken? Is there any behavior on my part that has led to those consequences that over time has created this new reality? Once I start to notice the actions that I've taken, the behaviors that I've exhibited to other people, once I really start to understand what it is that's driving those consequences, I can then go back to the root cause and say, what tendency of mine is it that has led to these types of actions, these types of behaviors? Those behaviors will then in turn cause people to treat me differently, to act differently around me, or to be reactive in a different sort of way. And over time, that's going to create a new reality, a new assumption about myself, something that people assume about me and a certain perspective that they have about me. Now, the other way I can do this is start with tendencies. Perhaps you know some of your own tendencies. Perhaps you know some of those negative tendencies that have led you to take certain actions. If I know some tendency about myself, then I can see what actions there are that I'm taking as a result of that tendency. I can then start to examine what sort of consequences are happening to me, what sort of behaviors or reactions are people taking to my actions, and what sort of reality has that created for myself. So just to give you an example of one of these, I'll give you one of my own. One of my own is to procrastinate too much. I lead with that creative voice. And for those things that feel creative, or those things that require my creative abilities, those are things I love to jump into. They give me energy. They really motivate me. For the things that are not creative, for the things that are more mundane, or perhaps the things that don't connect with me, sometimes the day-to-day details, I can put those off. I can avoid those. I don't want to do those. And so I have a tendency to procrastinate. So if I start to procrastinate, there may be actions that I don't take in this case, or it could be actions I take. Maybe I choose to do something differently, or I choose to do something that's maybe not a priority. Those are the actions I take. Over time, if I continue to do that, then the consequences are that I miss deadlines, or perhaps I don't get something done as well as I should, or perhaps a task goes undone. The consequence for that is people start to not trust me to get my work done, or perhaps they don't trust me to fulfill my obligations and tasks on time. What that does is it starts to create a reality where my teammates don't trust me, where the people around me don't trust that I'm going to get the work done. That reality has all come from this tendency to procrastinate. If left unchecked over time, that procrastination will create patterns in my life. All of our tendencies will create patterns if we continually take that action. To create a new reality for ourselves, we have to understand these tendencies and choose to break those patterns. We have to choose to do something differently. Now, where do these tendencies come from? Some of these tendencies come from nature. They just come from your personality, from the way that you are hardwired. Maybe your strengths and weaknesses play into these tendencies that you have. So some of it's nature, some of it could be nurture. This was the way that you were brought up, or the influence of your parents or somebody else who was an adult in your life when you were growing up who was very influential. Those folks perhaps spoke into your life or taught you or led you to act a certain way or to think a certain pattern in your life. And so that becomes a tendency. And then some of these are our choices. Just over time, we have chosen to take the path of least resistance, and now it's become a tendency, it's become a pattern in our lives. What we have to do is go back and recognize those tendencies and choose to take different actions in order to break those patterns. Now, one thing that you can do is to start to create a tendency log. It might look like something like this, where you take the first tendency that you've noticed about yourself, what you tend to do, and you just write that on the list. And then what pattern has developed, the action that you normally take, and then what pattern is it that has developed in your life. Maybe jot down 2 or 3 of the consequences that usually happen when you take this particular action. Last but not least, what's it like to be on the other side of you? What reality have you created for yourself that other people are experiencing about you because of this tendency? So you can keep a log like this, keep a list, and perhaps go back and just remind yourself of some of your tendencies. Sometimes we may work on a tendency for a little while, and it may slip back into our life, or that action, that pattern may form again. So what you want to do is just remind yourself of this, but then also remind yourself of the progress. Once you have established new patterns and new habits, you can go back and look at the list and celebrate what you've done, and celebrate that you have that you've been able to overcome these, or perhaps choose to act a lot differently because of those. Last but not least, you can also use this tool for your team, for those that you manage or supervise, or perhaps people on project teams that you're responsible for. You can use this tool to help them and to coach them as well. So let me give you just a few pointers. Number one, just teach the tool. Teach the tool what you have learned and how you've learned how to use it. Take the tool and just teach it to the people on your team and how they can understand their tendencies and their patterns. After you've explained it, maybe you could note an area in which they could improve. Perhaps there's a particular behavior that you've noticed, or a particular action that you've seen them taken over and over, which is detrimental to the team or is undermining this person's influence. After you note that behavior, perhaps you could just ask them, say, what do you think the underlying tendency is that's leading to that kind of behavior? Or when you act this way, what do you think the tendency is? This is a moment for them to reflect upon their own lives, their own actions, their own tendencies. It's also an exercise in self-awareness. It's teaching them to become more self-aware and to get them on this journey of becoming more self-aware. From there, you can just coach them on how they can make changes. You can ask them how you can help them, or what support they need from you, or some sort of accountability, or is there a way that they can start to develop new habits and new behaviors. This is just an opportunity for you to coach them and to help them along the way. So that's Know Yourself to Lead Yourself, a simple tool. And just remember, we never graduate from the School of Self-Awareness. It's going to be a lifelong journey for us. But I know that if you start to become more self-aware, and you start to make the changes, if you start doing the hard work to improve yourself, make yourself a better leader, you truly can become a leader worth following.